understand the plan, but God willing, hope to see the day we end this blood spilling. No, when, even though there's just no telling when the end could be, everything in darkness comes to light eventually.
Okay, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Big Boy Project. Today we have a special guest, Tim and West. Everybody give a round of applause for Tim. Woo! Going on. Right now he's in Jackson. Was it Jacksonville, Florida?
Jacksonville, Florida, yeah.
Oh, okay. What are your plans for Jacksonville?
I am here for Teach for America's Public Affairs and Engagement Conference. I lead their LGBTQ community initiative. So we, at this conference, we just talk about how we engage the public, and build partnerships. So I'm leading some of the work here over the next few days, and then I head to DC to do some other work. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So for anybody that want to know more about the stuff you're doing, where can they go to find that information?
Absolutely. I do keep somewhat separate creative and professional lives, but if you go to teachforamerica.org, and then there's you can just look up the LGBTQ initiative. I'm always looking for educators and people that are potentially willing to go back into classrooms, because our schools certainly need more Black men, talented Black men, but also certainly need people who can, advocate for the kids in the schools that are being picked on and bullied and who aren't really getting a fair shake, often from some of the other administrators that say things that are not very tolerant or affirming or accepting. So I know the impact that I had in classrooms for the 15 years that I taught. And so I'm in a position now to actually offer opportunities for other people to get back in classrooms and potentially teach.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before we talk about your album, let's talk about the teaching thing. You say you've been teaching for how long?
I'm sorry, what's that?
You say you've been teaching for how long?
No, I taught.
Taught. Oh.
Yeah, I taught for about 15 years, and mostly in 3 different cities: Oakland, California, Washington, D.C., and I taught in Houston. But I've taught beyond that as well. So I'm an educator by training. That's what I'm trained to do. Both a professor at the college level as well as a teacher at the high school level.
Oh, okay. So what are the best aspects of you teaching? Like, what do you like about teaching?
Oh, what I like about teaching. I mean, for me, like, when you think about your coming of age, like, school is the one place that everybody, for the most part, has had to go through at some point or another. And you think about how much time you spend at school or in school settings, even sometimes compared to how much time you spend with your family, right? Like, a lot of your time is spent at school. Your socialization process is spent at school. And so for me, it becomes a way, like, how can I impact, and particularly like marginalized groups of people. I've mostly taught Black and brown kids. And so for a lot of them, who do come from marginalized families or live in low income neighborhoods or experiencing poverty and all kind of other stuff at home, I quickly saw that my role in a school context was more than just being a teacher and delivering knowledge, which I'm good at, and I love my lesson plans and curriculum stuff. But it was also that I was able to hold other roles. I was able to be, a father figure and a mentor for so many. And, people ask me how I have so many Facebook friends. Like, most of them are like former students that have grown up now, like they're grown. And to me, that's a real honor and a privilege that I've, among other teachers, have had a positive impact in their lives and their development. And, short of the more direct impact I have as a dad to my daughter, like I've been that for a lot of other people as well. So.
Oh, wow. Because speaking on that topic, a lot of teachers nowadays are not passionate about being a teacher. Like, they lost that passion, or the school, I think the school in general lost their passion because it's more about test scores and getting kids in and out instead of teaching them about life in general, because anybody, you can teach anybody math, you can teach anybody reading, you can teach anybody spelling, but when they get into the real world, like, okay, what am I supposed to do now? You know, when they graduate, because
yeah, I think the testing landscape has, you know, but at the same time, I think we do need tests because we need to be able to measure that students in schools are getting the education that they need and deserve. And I think what happens when you don't have testing, for the people like, oh, we shouldn't test. Well, I mean, I know what happened to me. I know the kind of high school I went to, and I went to fairly good high school. And then when I got to college, I wasn't really prepared at the same level as some of my other students were. So it has like a trickle down effect when you have people at some schools that are graduating valedictorian, they get to college and can't even hang.
right.
And so you need some measure. I don't agree with the extent to which testing has been happening, right? But I'm also not at the extreme of like, let's not test. I think there's some balance. I didn't teach to the test, like I didn't, but my students tested well because I was familiar enough with what the test required and a pretty good test taker myself that I was able to teach in a way that didn't have the students focusing on that. But again, like, you know, I ran into issues in school settings where they wanted me to, like, you know, use some kind of standard curriculum rather than my own creative ingenuity in terms of how to deliver the message. So yeah, there are a lot of issues in school. It's one of the reasons why I'm involved in the educational equity landscape right now with Teach for America. And they are one among a lot of other organizations doing work. So I just say to people, hey, you know, there's a drought in the teacher pipeline now. Like there are just not enough teachers. And in part, it's because they're not paid well enough. And I totally agree with that. It's hard. It's one of the most important professions, but yet our culture and our society doesn't really value teaching. If you look at what teachers are often paid. So I think we have a lot of work to do over the next, you know, next few years with regard to education. That's why the next election is going to be critically important, just in terms of like making sure that whoever people vote for, you know, what is their stake, and what is their position on education reform? What are they saying should happen? So that's something I'm definitely going to be looking out for, or still am.
Oh, okay. Well, I agree with that wholeheartedly, because it seems like when I was in school, it seems that the teachers weren't, like I said before, weren't passionate about it. They like throw you something and say do it, and that was the end of it. So it's nice to see that you was a passionate teacher. You want to teach them something besides the school curriculum. You know, try to be creative with it. A lot of teachers don't want to be creative, and that.
But there's a cause for that. I think some teachers, like myself, in certain settings, it wasn't always an easy road. There was some school situations where I was kind of resented for being very passionate. You know, because it's kind of like, you know, I think all teachers come in really passionate. So I don't want to at all like, you know, say anything negative about teachers. I think anybody that's doing it, but I will say this: when you get to the point where you can't be passionate about it, you're just throwing homework at students and not really caring or investing in it, then you just need to get another job. Like I don't think that it's right to stay in a position where you have the minds and hearts and spirits of young people and not give it your all. And that's one thing I can say about myself. When I've had teacher burnout, I shifted and I did something different with youth or young people so that I would constantly be in a position where I was always able to give my best. And so, yeah, that's my take on that. But yeah, I do agree with you. And I have experienced those teachers in my own life as a student. And I've also worked with some of those teachers that you know, could care less, quite honestly. And that's a shame. But I don't think that's the majority. You know, I do think that that's a minority of the teachers, but I also feel like a lot of them are disproportionately in some of the schools that need the most.
Right.
That's kind of what I try to do is, you know, help identify schools that need more resources and need some passionate, committed teachers and try to get them in there.
Oh, okay. So from teaching, how did you like shift to music?
Actually, it was the other way around.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah, like, I come from a musical family. Like, so both my parents are musicians and singers, and all my brothers and sisters play and sing. So I don't think I ever thought of myself as an artist, in part because it's just always been around me. So it wasn't until I got to college and started doing theater, and which I did in high school actually, but like started doing theater and singing the a cappella groups and gospel choirs, that people were like, oh, like you're really talented. I never thought of myself as talented. I just thought this is just what you do in a poor Black family. So yeah, that was it. I was in graduate school actually working on a PhD. I was at Stanford at the time when I seroconverted. I tested positive in '99. And that shook me up. So I was on the fast track to be this professor, and I was studying philosophy, cultural theory, queer theory, all that stuff. And for some reason, I think the diagnosis kind of shook me up. And I think it was one day I was reading an academic paper that I was about to turn in, and just the language in it was so theoretical and terse and dense that I was like, if I gave this to the people back home, they probably wouldn't understand half of it,
Right.
And faced with, at that time, the uncertainty of my mortality and what was going to happen with my health, I started to think about what I wanted to be remembered for,
Right.
and it wasn't so much preparing to die, but I wasn't sure at that time. Protease inhibitors are still fairly new. There were still a lot of questions out about them. And I mean, the first medications I had to take were really harsh, so I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I didn't have the luxury of having an HIV diagnosis. My first diagnosis was an AIDS diagnosis because I had a 200 T cells. So, it kind of threw me into this space. I took a little sabbatical, and during that time, I wrote my first book, Red Dirt Revival, which celebrated 10 years. In 2013, I did a second edition of the book. But I also, during that time, started a rap group called Deep the Collective, DDC. And me and the other two guys that helped start it, basically were part of a revolution of LGBTQ hip hop that happened in the late to late 90s and continued on through the early O's. And now there are just tons of gay and lesbian rappers all over the place that openly identify. So yeah, I'm like proud to be sort of a pioneer of that. But all of that creative stuff really grew out of a desire to create product that a broader audience could understand and receive. And I knew that wasn't going to happen through writing philosophy books. Although I still dabble in scholarship, I publish academic essays. I have an essay in the anthology, the Cultural Impact of Kanye West. That's probably my latest in terms of scholarship, and that's a pretty theoretical type essay. If it's about hip hop, it's hip hop scholarship. So I'm still doing that, but I'm glad that moment really shook me into a place where I could create.
Okay. So from your first album to your album now, Iconology.
Mm-hmm.
What
Iconography.
I can't even say it. I'll let you say it since you say it perfectly, then I can. But what are the difference between your first album and your album now?
Actually, I would say my album now is probably a lot like my first album. I've kind of come full circle. So Songs from Red Dirt was my first solo album. I did several albums with DDC. But my first solo album, I did a lot of singing, a lot of hip hop, a lot of house music, a lot of electronica. It was me. It was kind of all over the place. As people say, too many things. And there was a part of me, I got some pushback. I mean, some people love Songs from Red Dirt. A lot of people love Songs from Red Dirt. And they loved it because it was kind of expressive and like sort of the fullness of what I'm into. I'm a househead, but I also rap. I don't really listen to a lot of rap music. I listen to some, but it's not like my main thing. I'm a jazz and house head and maybe soul. But I do enjoy emceeing, and I think part of why I'm turned off by hip hop is that the subject matters are so it's like, so for me, it's like I rap because I'm interested in like the things that just have not been talked about in hip hop, and yet people are still doing these same old songs, about their cars and their guns and their bitches and hoes, So for me, it's an opportunity to assert and introduce topics in the hip hop landscape that don't get talked about much. But I would say, this current album is a lot like the first one, except it's more polished. My first album, Songs from Red Dirt, definitely a good project, but definitely I was a lazy singer back then. I do one or two takes and stop, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. It's good, or it's good enough. Right. Because I think I took myself as seriously as I do as an artist now. And so I think, for those that really like Songs from Red Dirt, they're gonna really, really like Iconography. And I can say without a doubt, this is my best album yet. And this is my 6th album.
Wow.
So lots of music out there. This is my 6th solo album. And then I said I had the 4 projects with DDC. So, I've done a lot of music, but I definitely think this is the best. I got to work with a production team this time that's just really skilled set of brothers. I worked with fewer people on this project too. I think that also helped a little bit, allow for some continuity. They're only about, I would say, half of the songs are produced by one person who's a friend of mine, Rob Rhythm. He produced about half of the tracks on the album, and then the other 2, Watkins, who was one of the co-executive producers out of Philly, and a really close friend of mine. And then, Cedro has been really instrumental on the album. He actually he's featured on, I think, 3 of the songs, but he also helped with a lot of the vocal arrangement.
Really?
So I was, this is an album where I kind of had to like sit with my humility and say, what does it mean to ask other people for help? Like, and I had people pushing me on this album, like, you're a little bit off there. Like, redo that. Or, or you can sing that a little bit better, or add this harmony. So it truly feels like a real collaborative project. And I think for that reason, it's gonna be one that's talked about. I think it's gonna be one that definitely, it's not my ambition to be a mainstream artist. In fact, I don't know that I would want to, quite honestly. And people ask me that all the time. I love the work that I do. I love education and really having an impact on, thousands and thousands of young people and kids.
Right.
I don't imagine, unless something like super miraculous happened and, I got on Ellen and Oprah and then all of a sudden just my album blew up. I still think I would try to keep my job. And I know that sounds really weird. I would still be like, can I keep my job? Like, can I continue to do this work? So
right.
I'm a Renaissance man. I think that's who I am. Like, I'm a person that works a job, and I work a job, and I work really hard to put that money and invest that money into some of my creative projects, like my book, like my CD, which is why, like, I really encourage people. It's $9.99. Like, you support Kanye, like support Tim and
right.
And I'm speaking about topics on this project that, again, like a lot of people don't talk about. I had an opportunity on this project, to address. It's not the first time that I've addressed people that are gender fluid, or people that are kind of like in an in-between space in terms of their sexuality. I'm queer identified, probably bisexual, pansexual, if that's what you want to call it. I identify as polyamorous. I'm not religious. So I'm in a lot of in-between spaces. And so one of the songs on the project that I really think speaks to who I am is a song called Between. And I think a lot of people that don't really fit neatly into a lot of categories or are outside of the norm will really identify with that.
Okay. That's going to be my next question. Like, what was your inspiration for each song? Like, was it like each emotion or what you were going through your lifetime, or How's that work?
I mean, the songs just kind of come like, and I don't know, I tend to be, because I work so hard and so much, I think my creative stuff happens in spurts. So it's the build up, the residual sort of build up of a lot of emotion. Their love songs, their crush songs, there are, there are some political songs. I think it's interesting. I think the more resolved and centered I've come around politics, the less political I want to sound. I even redid some of my verses because I sounded too preachy. And I didn't want to be that OG that's like preaching at everybody. So I went back in and I was like, well, how can I keep the words but make it a little more fun and nuanced and joyful? So even the songs, I mean, I am a conscious, I mean, people would consider the project a conscious, I don't know if they would call it a hip hop project, because it's definitely, I would say maybe a little over half of it is hip hop, but then it's also a lot of vocal work, a lot of spoken word. So I'm not sure what people call it, but it's definitely a project in truth. And I think it's definitely a brave project. I'm really pleased and happy with it. And I'm excited. I'm interested in seeing how people respond to this project. And I think, the fact that Janet released an album on Friday, was it? I guess officially.
Yes.
Some people claim is like, wow, like for me, I listened to it. I definitely think it's one of my favorite, period, that she's done. And I kind of like to think of this project as that project that I've done that people say, wow, like, I'm so glad you're still doing music. Because I was going to retire. I thought I was done with hip hop after Snapshots. I just, it was stuff I did for fun, but I just didn't feel any inspiration. And then I moved to Atlanta and I got into a relationship and, things happened. Like, I got inspired. I started writing a lot. So I have both ATL and my guy Cleo to thank for that, my friend Cleo.
Well, shout out to Killer Cleo. Okay. Okay, this song ended on a little simple question. If people would go to your playlist now, what songs would they find?
To my playlist.
Right.
Oh goodness. Right in this moment.
Right now.
They might get depressed. They find a lot of Phyllis Hyman and Sade, and they find some Layla Hathaway. They find some Ananda Project, some Ocean Lade, some Real People. They'd find some Common, some Rachel Claudio, some Kendrick Lamar. Then they'd find some Beastie Boys, some Karis One, some Omar. That's probably what they find. I mean, I like a lot of music. The music I like is kind of all over the place, but I mean, you got your jazz in there. You got your hip hop, but I'm definitely a golden era hip hop head. There'll probably be some Mary up in there somewhere because I'm a big Mary J. Blige fan. But this stuff is all over the place. I listen to what guides me music. In fact, if I were to look real quick at my little iTunes thing, I could tell you what's currently kind of on my playlist. Oh, they'd see. It's not even pulling up right now. Oh, here it comes. I'll tell you. So yeah, they'd see this group called Spacek. They're like a German kind of hip hop soul group. They would see some of my favorite house DJs, Lady Duracell, Shelly Diego, David Harness. They see D'Angelo in the Vanguard, Black Messiah. Love that project. Some J HUD, some Tuxedo, some U2. Yeah, that's pretty much what's on my playlist right now. I think I got something else.
Well, I got no problems with that because if they look at my playlist, they'll find a bunch of 70s, 80s, and 90s songs.
Yeah, I'm really into the '80s. So that's what I like and find a little fascinating about the Tuxedo Project. I'm not sure if you heard that, but it's a little bit troubling for me that these white boys put out this project that's such a beautiful tribute to like '80s soul.
Right.
I'm like, why hasn't somebody else done that? But it's good. It's good. I love it.
Right.
You know, it definitely takes me back to like Loose Ends and Soul to Soul and a lot of my UK soul stuff that I really, really appreciated and love. So,
right. I think in those times, like 70s, 80s, or 90s, people love to experiment. There was a lot of different genres, a lot of different songs. People love to experiment. Now it's more manufactured, and they're like, okay, I know this beat. I hear the same beat over and over again by listening to like certain songs from certain people. I hear the same beat because they know everybody gonna love that beat, so they gonna keep.
Yeah, that's one thing. You know, and it's interesting. Like, I mean, one thing about my project that I have to say about all my projects, I don't use samples. You know, there are a lot of artists out there. There are a lot of producers, like the guys that I got to work with on this project.
Right.
They are talented people that deserve to be paid for their creative production. That they are musicians. And so I like when people go, "Oh, you're gonna give me one of your CDs?" I'm like, I'm not, like I had to pay people to create music for my CD. So, you know, and it's original music, and you won't hear it anywhere else. So,
right.
To that extent, it's important that you also invest in the project as well. And you know, it went to help somebody that's actually creating. So for me, that's really important, and that's something I'm proud of. You know. I'm one of those persons that sometimes I feel like, you know what, you know, if and when that day comes, which, you know, hopefully I'm here for another 40, 50 years, 50, I don't know, maybe 40. I don't know. I just can't imagine myself being super old. Like, you know, I want to be like a graceful, like, okay, you know, that OG looks fly. And then I just,
right.
But yeah, so that's kind of, you know, yeah, that's what I don't know what I was saying. I just totally got thrown off. But just in terms of like, you know, getting older and, you know, Bong got great. But I do know that like my work will be probably as well, if not better known after the fact, you know, which I think is sad. But I think there are just some artists that just they know that like for whatever reason, a lot of people just you're not really fully appreciated until you're not there.
Sure.
But I do feel like that stamp, you know, when you do critically acclaimed work, it's very different than doing popular work, right?
Right.
A lot of work is really popular, and a lot of people want to be popular. They want to be popular artists, but a lot of those popular artists, in 3 or 4 years, you don't even remember. You may remember the 1 or 2 songs they did that people turned to in the club, but you won't remember anything else about them. So
right. I mean, that's the thing. I remember somebody said, artists today don't think about the future; they think about now. And the people, and what I mean by that is like, what can I do now to get in the news, kind of thing, instead of let my music speak for itself. Like you talk to Michael Jackson, Janet, this stuff, like as soon as they're gone, like especially Michael Jackson, as soon as they're gone, their music's gonna be there forever. That's their stamp. That's their life. That's their emotions. That's them. You know, and that's gonna circulate for the end of time because it's great music. But let's go ahead and end this. I know you're a busy man, Al. I know you got work to do. Go ahead and give them your social network information or stuff they can find your.
Absolutely, yeah. Pretty much Red Dirt Biz, which is my website, is reddirt.biz. But I'm Red Dirt Biz, REDDIRTBIZ at Twitter, at Instagram. On Facebook, I'm timm.west.theartist. Yeah, without the apostrophe. That's me on Facebook. Let's see what else. yeah, those are pretty much it. Like, those are my social media things. Twitter. I don't do a lot of direct messaging at Twitter. So some people I probably got some old messages in there just waiting for me. I'm not a Twitter person that much. I'm definitely more of a Facebook guy. I think some people forget I'm 43. I'm not a youngin. So I still got an iPhone 1. That's what one of my friends says. He says, you still got the iPhone 1. I'm like, yeah, it works. So
right.
Yeah, but that's it, man. I appreciate the time and you talking to me about this project. Definitely encourage people to get out there, support it. I think it means it's especially like I know a lot of people that know like it's one thing to like to listen to somebody's project who you don't know, like, but it's another thing to listen to a project and of the guy that you see hanging out at the bar, or at
right.
Just around about town. And I think that's the kind of artist I've always appreciated being, is that really accessible person. I think sometimes I'm a little taken aback when someone recognizes me in public and it has like a fan moment. Like that's always a little bit sort of weird because I don't see myself that way, but it has happened more than a few times where someone goes, "Oh my God, like you're Tim and West," and I'm like, yeah, that's me.
Right.
Like, okay, is a paparazzi gonna jump out of a tree? Like, nah, I'm not that guy. I don't ever want to be that guy that can't go to Kroger and buy a chicken sandwich.
I agree.
So yeah, but now I appreciate all the love and I also just encourage people through my process. And not everyone's an artist, but I think creating has been my therapy. That's been how I get through life situations. It's why I'm here, more than 16 years after my HIV diagnosis. It's, when I stop creating, I have effectively decided it's time to to die, And so as long as I'm creating, man, I'm out here trying to live. And that's what's up.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming on to the Big Boy Project.
Thank you for having me, Brother James.
And we'll have a part 2 to this soon.
Yes, sir. Maybe on the part 2 we can get some other people on. They can kind of talk about the album and what they like about it, and that'll be kind of neat. I'm always interested in hearing from people like what they think or what they like about it. It's interesting. I will give this one little tidbit. There's a song, I consider it like a gay duet. But it's interesting. I think our ears are so trained not to imagine two men singing about romance that the first few people I've had listen to it did not even catch that.
Right.
They thought it was two separate guys talking about maybe their girls or something. And I was like, huh? I mean, are we that wired not to be able to imagine like a gay love song that like we like totally take it somewhere else? I think that's interesting. So when you do hear that song, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind.
I mean, I really can't wait to hear it.
Yeah.
But we'll catch you guys next time, and we'll see you guys later. Peace.
First off, moment of silence for the unlucky ones who had to leave this world way before enough was done. Luckily for us, we can rest in our comfort zones, pretending like things are nice and nothing's ever wrong. But kids are killing kids. Where's the innocence? Crimes are glorified and